So this is Paige Bueckers right here. This is one of the better players in all of women's college basketball. Heck, you could argue one of the best. She's a really damn good player. Not one of the all-time greats like some people are saying, but she is one of maybe the 10 best
Fans of Sheryl Swoopes are outraged at the blatant disinformation that unfairly minimizes Clark's supremacy when a commentator used her bogus statements to boost Paige Bueckers above Caitlin.
She doesn't force anything. She's not going to go out there and take 40 shots. She isn't that kind of player. And I know we've talked about the Caitlin Clarks, of the day, now Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. They're different kinds of players, and there's just really no comparing them because Paige Bueckers'
argument over who is superior has been going on for years. But now that outright lies are being spread, social media is exploding and demanding answers. Was this a mistake, a media agenda, or deliberate discrediting of the truth?
This again. Oh, you can't compare Caitlin and Paige because Caitlin's Paige is an all-round player. Caitlin's not. Paige is a better defender. Paige is a better pull-up mid-range shooter. That is the only two things on the floor that Paige Bueckers is better than Caitlin Clark. Literally it. She does nothing else better.
Behind these false narratives finally coming to light. Keep tuned as we dissect the realities of the deception and the reasons why fans aren't keeping quiet. Caitlin. Clark versus Paige Bueckers debate has been going on for years, but let's be real, there is no real debate anymore. Clark has established herself as one of the greatest college basketball players ever, while Bueckers, though extremely talented, has not reached the same level of dominance due to injuries and different playing circumstances. Yet media figures continue to push misleading narratives that attempt to elevate Bueckers at Clark's expense.
Caitlin's a better rebounder. Caitlin's anticipates passing lanes better. Is she a better defender? No, but she anticipates passing lanes better. Caitlin reads the game better. Caitlin has more gravity. Caitlin is better working out of double teams. Caitlin is 100 times better passer. Caitlin's faster, especially going downhill. Caitlin reads defenses better.
And this time, things went too far during a recent broadcast. A commentator paired some questionable claims saying Paige Bueckers is a more complete player because she gets her teammates more involved, doesn't force shots, and isn't selfish with the ball. But the real jaw-dropper, the claim that Clark takes 40-plus shots per game and plays an inefficient, selfish style. If you know anything about Clark's actual stats, you know how ridiculous this is. But here's the kicker. These same misleading statements have been made before, almost.
She's going to get people the ball. She's going to look for her shot like that. And she's going to let the game really come to her. You never see her out there taking 40 or 50 shots. It's just not her game.
She's already in double figures, now 2 of 5 from the field. But to your point, there's a way that you can dominate games. Sometimes it's brute force, which, listen.
It's just different. It's just a different.
Word for word by none other than Sheryl Swoopes. That's right, this isn't the first time. Swoopes has tried to undermine Caitlin Clark's greatness. And now that a commentator is repeating those same claims, fans aren't letting it slide. The numbers don't lie, and it's time to set the record straight first. Let's break down the most absurd claim that Caitlin Clark is a volume shooter who takes 40-plus shots per game. This is not just an exaggeration, it's a flat-out lie. Where is this narrative coming from? Is it intentional misinformation? Or are people just not doing their research? In any case, it is extremely misleading and completely discredits the impact that Clark has had on the game. Clark has played in nearly 190 college games, and in that time, she has shot over 30 times in a game just 6 times. Not 40, not 50, 6 times over 30. Also, she has never attempted 40 shots in a game. The Clark averaged 32 points during a season, in which she took more than 20 shots each game while maintaining elite shooting percentages. This is not inefficiency. Rather, it is historical supremacy. Paige Bueckers, on the other hand, has never been asked to carry an offensive as Clark has, and she plays in a structured system under Gino Arama. Her shot selection is different, but that doesn't make her better or more effective. It just indicates that their roles are different. Although Bueckers is a terrific player, the notion that she is somehow more complete since she doesn't shoot as often is a blatant disregard for context. Bueckers' function at UConn and Clark's at Iowa are different, therefore it is dishonest to compare them without taking into account how their offensive systems differ. But the lies don't end there. When you look at the facts, it's especially absurd that Bueckers gets her colleagues more involved than Clark. according to another assertion that was made on television. If Clark were a selfish player, she wouldn't be leading the nation in assists and dropping more than 30 points per game. The truth is that she attracts so much attention from defenders that she constantly finds open teammates for easy shots, which is what makes her so special. She isn't just dominant on her own, she elevates the players around her. This is why the idea that Bueckers is somehow the superior facilitator isn't supported by any statistical evidence. Clark is third all-time in NCAA Division I history and assists. It all boils down to how the media affects people's perceptions. Attempts to fit female athletes into preconceived notions have long existed, and Clark's high-usage, high-scoring game subverts certain antiquated assumptions. Some people enjoy it when a player takes control of a game and doesn't hesitate to let the ball fly from 30 feet away, while others, particularly traditionalists, find it difficult. This is where Sheryl Swoopes' involvement gets even more intriguing. The WNBA legend Swoopes has had a complex relationship with contemporary women's basketball discussions. On several occasions, she has made dubious remarks about Clark's game, frequently downplaying her impact, efficiency, and overall greatness. At times, it almost feels personal, as some fans speculate that Swoopes views Clark as a threat to the old guard, a new superstar who is drawing more attention to women's basketball than ever before. Rather than celebrating Clark's success, there has been resistance, and this most recent incident only serves to reinforce that narrative. However, this is where things get even more ironic. Not 30 seconds after complimenting Bueckers on being the complete antithesis of Clark, the same analyst now acknowledged that Gino Ara himself wants Bueckers to be more aggressive, more like Caitlin Clark. If Clark's style of play is so ineffective and flawed, why is one of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time telling his star player to imitate it? This contradiction highlights the flawed logic behind these comparisons. Bueckers is being praised for being different from Clark, but her own coach wants her to play more like Clark, because that's what wins games. The reality is, Clark isn't just a great player. She's a generational talent who is rewriting the record books in real time, and no amount of false narratives, misleading comparisons, or forced debates will change that. Meanwhile, Bueckers still has a lot to prove. Again, this is not a knock on her talent. She is an incredibly skilled player who will likely have a great career, but she has not reached the same level of dominance as Clark. And it's unfair to both players to keep forcing this comparison when the gap between them has become so clear. At the end of the day, these false narratives only hurt the sport, instead of celebrating both players for what they bring to the game. The media continues to push divisive, misleading comparisons that aren't backed by facts, and that's why fans are so frustrated that they see the numbers. They watch the games. They know who the best player in college basketball is, and they're tired of hearing blatant misinformation being pushed to try to change that reality. No amount of media spin, selective statistics, or inflated claims will ever change the fact that Caitlin Clark is not only the best player in women's college basketball, but is also on her way to becoming one of the greatest of all time. The truth is out, the lies are exposed in the debate, and it's no longer even close. Fans of the Caitlin Clark versus Paige Bueckers discussion are not only responding to a single untrue statement, they are also revealing a history of erroneous narratives in women's basketball coverage, thanks to Sheryl Swoopes and the commentators' remarks. The annoyance stems from more than simply Clark's contempt. It also stems from the unfair elevation of some players. While others are continuously examined, the idea that Cait Clark takes too many shots doesn't make her teammates better or isn't efficient has been repeated so often that some casual fans might think it's true, even though the statistics clearly show otherwise. This further exacerbates the situation because Cait Clark has spent years proving herself at every level, breaking records, drawing large audiences, and changing the game. If Clark's style of play is so flawed and ineffective, why is one of the greatest college coaches in history pushing his best player to imitate it? The same people who applaud Paige Bueckers for playing differently from Clark are also saying that she needs to be more aggressive, take more shots, and dominate like Clark does. This is about how media narratives are influencing how people view women's basketball players, not only about Clark and Bueckers anymore. The discourse surrounding male athletes is quite different. There wouldn't be ongoing attempts to lessen his impact by supporting a player who hasn't accomplished as much, which is why so many fans are protesting because they perceive the unfair treatment of Clark in comparison to some of her peers. If an NBA player were setting records, garnering enormous viewership and showing concern for his team, the media would be praising him as the sport's face. They observe how some game legends reject her efforts and instead attempt to minimize her achievements in favor of others. And they observe how the media is fabricating stories to make the Clark versus Bueckers debate seem like something it isn't. Paige Bueckers is an amazing player in her own right. She has battled through injuries and is still among the best in college basketball, but using her as a means of disparaging Caitlin Clark only serves to harm both players. Instead of being erroneously positioned as Clark's equal to fit a manufactured rivalry, Bueckers deserves recognition for what she has truly accomplished. The fact is that Clark and the other women's collegiate basketball players are very different from one another. This isn't meant to be disparaging. It's just the reality. Clark is not only the finest player in the game right now, she is headed to become one of the greatest players of all time. However, rather than applauding this, some members of the media seem more interested in criticizing her performance and trying to undermine her. Fans are making it clear that they won't allow these false narratives to continue unchecked as a result of Sheryl Swoopes' repeated criticisms of Clark, which have drawn increasing backlash. The performances speak for themselves, the numbers don't lie, and the notion that Clark is anything but a generational stereotype. Selling talent that is changing the game in real time is becoming more and more difficult. But this is where things could get even more intriguing. The way these narratives are now handled will have to change significantly as a result of Clark's move to the WNBA. Some media outlets still have the luxury of comparing her to collegiate athletes, manipulating statistics, and selectively framing conversations to support a false narrative. If Clark dominates the WNBA the way she did in college, the media will be forced to recognize her greatness once she reaches the professional ranks and begins to prove herself at the next level. At the same time, the analysts who have been downplaying her significance for years will have to turn around since the misleading analogies will no longer be valid. If Bueckers fails to make an impression right away, or if Clark soon becomes one of the best players in the WNBA, the same media that has elevated her to Clark's level will also have inflated expectations for her when she joins the league. Those who pushed this argument for years will be held accountable for their false claims. The social media era has altered everything, and fans have made it obvious that they will no longer put up with media spin. Because fans now have access to actual statistics, narratives can no longer be controlled as they once could. They can spot biased reporting and expose false information in real time by watching genuine footage and conversations. So what comes next? Nike, ESPN, and other companies that promote women's basketball will need to make a decision about who they really want to invest in. If Clark keeps dominating, will they eventually accept her as the game's face, or will they continue to promote other viewpoints? Most importantly, will the media finally allow Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers to be great in their own right, without continuously attempting to enforce a rivalry that no longer exists? Or will former players like Swoopes continue to hold on to antiquated prejudices that no longer hold water? What do you think? Did Sheryl swoop in this commentator to push a false narrative, or was this just another example of poor analysis? Clark is rewriting the record books, changing the way people watch women's basketball, and proving doubters wrong at every step. No amount of false comparisons or misleading claims will change the fact that the truth is out, the debate is already over, and this is already over. The facts are unambiguous. These comparisons are absurd because Caitlin Clark is so much better. Leave a comment below with your thoughts on whether the media should stop imposing this debate or if there is still a case to be made. If you liked this analysis, be sure to watch our next video as we have even more outrageous takes to reveal. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you